Right. This has joined the audience, so the students must be coming in from the English session, which I just want to emphasise. It's a valuable session to attend, the English classes. And I know that Dr. Linda Barkas, has fought very strongly to get you those English sessions. So I believe there's another 3 weeks left, but still, it's very encouraging that you guys are signing up. Yes, we're in difficult times, but I'm pleased you're signing up. However, turning to today's guest lecture, we have the privilege of Gary Watson, who is the Business Operations Manager for the Firefighting Division in Middlesbrough, a part of the Serco Group. And Gary has kindly freed up his time to come along to talk to you for approximately about 45 minutes. But what I want to see is lots of questions. So while Gary's talking, save your questions till the end, and we'll spend about 15 minutes chatting over those. And I'm sure you'll find it a very informative and entertaining presentation. So Gary, over to you.
Thanks, Derek. Informative and entertaining are two adjectives, sadly, that are very rarely applied to me, but we'll see how we get on. And good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to dial in to the presentation this afternoon. I sincerely hope you take the value from it. What I'll explain first is what I'm going to talk about. So Derek asked me to come on to this presentation as a part of the alumni of Sunderland University, or Sunderland Polytechnic as it was when I attended in the middle of the 17th century, and talk about the career journey I've been on. I want to talk about some of my perceptions on the difference about the workplace now and when I first graduated and started to work. I'll talk a little bit about key learning about business and key learning about how people interact in the workspace. I'll then talk about some advice on how to go about getting a job. And I know that many of you out there have already had successful interviews and you've been in the workplace, and maybe you still are now. But then once you've actually secured that job, how to make a positive impact on the workplace, in my experience, how to develop your skills. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of perspective and different operating styles. Now, as you can imagine, that's quite a lot, so I'll only be covering it fairly light touch, but hopefully with some signposts in particular around operating styles if you want to go out and find out more about what I have been talking about. So if we talk about my career, well, I graduated in 1988, which, just to put it in a historical context, is when CERN had their first main meeting about what the World Wide Web could actually look like and what it could mean for business and for educational establishments. So just when that was happening, I was emerging, blinking into the daylight after doing my French degree at Sunderland Polytechnic, as it was then. I went into recruitment and sales. That was chiefly on the phones, outbound telecanvassing, selling the recruitment service for a company based in Gateshead, a UK-wide firm, but based in Gateshead. The firm there thought I was reasonably successful, so they promoted me into a management post when I was 26, which is when I first started to manage people. After a spell in the recruitment industry and some time after the reunification of Germany as a historical point, I went into logistics. So that was for a haulage and a distribution company where I worked as national sales manager for them, selling their transport and warehousing services, but also managing a small profit centre. There was a particular part of the business and operation, and I actually managed that. So that got me into sort of an operational environment as well at that stage. Then shortly after George Bush was named president of the United States, quite timely given the fact that the election's going on now in the United States, I joined the Northeast Chamber of Commerce, where I managed the commercial services function, the international trade function. So that gave me a more diverse group of teams to manage around marketing, around product development, around customer services, and also some very specific budgetary responsibilities. And it was really there that I started to get a lot of exposure to P&L, to balance sheets, to cash flow at the chamber. I then left that and went into a consultancy business, which was initially involved in executive coaching. Then one of the parts of the consultancy business, interestingly enough, was a contract cleaning business where I was moved into that organisation as the managing director, and then sold that business on behalf of the owner, before then coming into the International Fire Training Centre, where I've got full general management responsibilities. That's finance, sales, operations, compliance, HR. It all falls to me. I've got reach back within Serco for support, but the on a day-to-day basis, this £4 million business, I manage the whole thing. So a change in industries, I would say the common denominator there has been that it's all been in the service sector. Never worked in manufacturing, never worked in the public sector, but hopefully you can see from that the evolution from starting in sales and getting involved in other areas until this quite broad role that I have now. Now I recognise I'm just going to sort of put what I'm going to talk about into context. Listen, I recognise that the world of work for the people on the call now and in the future will be very different to the journey I've been on over the last 32 years. 32 years. Boy, that makes me shudder when I say that. So the big difference, IT, when I first started working, it was one of those green screened word processors the size of a small Volvo sitting in the corner of the office with the administrator tapping away. And obviously IT's come a long way since then. And really that's changed the way we work. And we've had to adapt to of positive benefits, but also what you'll be facing is greater life expectancy. More people who are born now will live to 100 and beyond than any other time in our history. So with that life expectancy, retirement age is being pushed out, which also means that you might find yourself going through a very different journey with gaps in your career, with opportunities to retrain, with complete changes in the career direction, and that's going to become very much the norm. And that's a norm in an economy, again, which has changed significantly. The importance of knowledge in the workplace now is much higher than it was 25, 30 years ago. It's easier to start up a business with less capital by selling and trading and operating a business online. And certainly over the last couple of years, the availability of capital to set up a business has opened up massively. And that's just some of the economic changes that I've witnessed just over the last 5-10 years. But also the work culture's changed as well since I started. The really high value impact of true diversity in the workplace, diversity of ethnicity, of sexual orientation, of gender. That wasn't as obvious when I first started working as it is now. We can see the benefits of that, and it's a great pity that it took the country, like as with other countries, so long really to embrace that diversity. But one of the things I've noticed more recently, I think over the last 5 years, is embracing diversity of thinking, recognizing that it's only by harnessing the total intellectual horsepower of an organization with all those different perspectives, different views, that a business can really drive itself onwards and actually grow and respond to the challenges that we face in an ever-changing world. The role of learning becomes more important, partly around life expectancy and the change in the economy and the change in the work culture. So lifelong learning, I think, is more important now, and learning how to adapt to those changes in economic conditions, social conditions, political and environmental conditions. And the other thing really, which I've seen certainly over the since COVID, is massive changes in the workplace. The opportunity to work at home, to work in the office, to work different hours, all of that is really chalk and cheese with what it was like for the first 10, 15, 20 years of my career. Which means that people of a certain age, the younger members of our community, and obviously I'm not including myself in that, will be seeing more choice out there, lifestyle choice, work choice, greater flexibility in that workspace, but also greater uncertainty as well. Around the gig economy, we see at the moment in the American election in some of the states, one of the talking points is called Code 22, where Uber and Lyft are trying to say that these people don't actually work for them, their self-employed contractors. So there is more choice, more flexibility, but certainly a lot more uncertainty. Then if we come on to 2 areas of keen learning, the first one, killer points, I guess, that I've learned over the last 32 years. And the first thing is be clear about your offer. And I would say that's whether you're a public sector or perhaps even more importantly, private sector organisation. So you need to be really clear about what you're selling, exactly what product, what service are you selling and what are you not selling. So you try and only grow your offer out of the freezer cabinet. So you don't jump about to lots of different places. You evolve your offer by going into areas which are contiguous with what you're doing now. But who are you going to sell it to and how are you going to sell it? And on what basis are you making that pitch? Because more often than not, whatever it is that you're selling, people are buying that from somebody else right now. So you need to win that work. So you can win it by either being cheaper, by offering a higher quality or better service. And it's only by really understanding what you're selling, who you're selling to, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to differentiate yourself in the marketplace that you're really going to have any success. The next thing is, and this is something that people often lose sight of, is manage your cash so you can have the best profit and loss in your sector. You could even have a really good balance sheet, but if you've not got the cash coming in, if you're not chasing your debtors, if you're not managing how money's exiting the business and how money's coming into the business, you're going to be in trouble. And when things do get tight, you need to be aware of where you can go to actually get access to that additional capital. But in terms of managing your cash, if you find yourself with a cash surplus, you need to think about what you're going to do with that, because businesses aren't performing particularly well if they've got too much cash in the bank. It's one of the things that Google face and Apple face, the accumulation of cash, and they're just not getting the returns on it. So when you're managing your cash, if you do have a surplus, look at, do I need to be buying more equipment to make the business more efficient? Do I need to be recruiting more people so I can trade more and sell more and deliver more? Do I use that cash to acquire another business, and what's the strategy behind that acquisition? The next thing is about knowing your numbers, and that's partly around your financial numbers. Obviously, your P&L, your balance sheet, and your cash flow. Those are the 3 key things. But knowing your numbers around your operating efficiencies, what's working well, where are you getting your best utilizations out of people and equipment? Understanding your sales efficiencies, how many calls you have to make to get an inquiry, how many inquiries to get a sale, what's the average order value of that sale, to understand where you can be more effective by understanding the numbers that exist within any business. And finally, the key learning from business for me would be embedding continuous improvement. It's axiomatic that whatever it took to get you where you are today will never be enough to keep you there. The world changes around you, your customers, your competitors. If we look over the last 20 years, Blockbuster came and went, Woolworths came and went, BlackBerry came, and they've kind of gone, except for some specialist military stuff that I think they do. So continuous improvement, you can look at 2 areas. You look at lean, which is a bottom-up approach, driving efficiencies, or you go for innovation, a top-down, throw away the rule book and start again. How would you do this differently? But continuous improvement is absolutely essential for any successful business. And then if we come on to some of the key learning about people, it's really important that we've all got to be aware of our rights. We've got the right to be respected. We've got the right to be listened to and to be understood. We've got the right to be safe in our workplace from a health and safety perspective. We also need to be aware of our responsibilities and make sure that we've got that right balance between what are our rights and what are our responsibilities to the employer, and look to deliver value. Always be aware of the kind of value that you're delivering to your employer. Which leads me neatly on to task and purpose. Task is doing something. Purpose is about, is Is what you're doing getting you where you need to be? Going back to understanding your business, is what you're doing improving income, improving profitability, making the place safer and more compliant? It's very easy in a workplace, especially a large organization like Serco, to get all caught up in task. And we're very, very busy. And, you know, for centuries, really, since the probably 18th to early 19th century, busy has become a virtue. And we all like to say, you know, how you doing? I'm very busy. I'm very busy. And it's easy to be busy. It's sometimes harder to be purposeful when you're busy. So keep your eye on the objectives and always move towards them. The next thing is, and this comes from the Rudyard Kipling poem, If. You know, triumph and disaster are both imposters. Triumphs are never as good as you think they are, and disasters are never as bad. So as you go through your career, you will get good news and bad news. And it's about maintaining a perspective on the good and the bad, and not overreacting too much to either one, because you'll always recover from the bad stuff. And the good stuff won't always seem that good for too long, because problems come along. So that element of equanimity in the workplace, equanimity in the way you view things, is really important. The next key learning about people, the final one, is courage and consideration. Two things. One is courage to have honest conversations, courage to say to be open and authentic and truthful, so people understand what you're saying, especially if you've got people reporting into you. You've got to have the courage to have honest conversations. But you've got to show consideration to other people's feelings and where they are in their career. So you take account of their feelings when you're having those difficult conversations. So courage and consideration, very important, I would say. So then, just a little bit about getting a job. Well, getting a job is a sales process. It's about volume. So you look at your sales funnel, and you've got to put a lot of effort in at this end to get a little bit out of that end. So make sure that you're not relying too much on just on a small number of opportunities. Luck might go your way, or people might recognize your talent, but in my experience, it really is a numbers game. So you've got to put a lot of effort in and really work your sources. So whether that's the job boards online or social media, LinkedIn's a good one. Whether it's other social media apps, whether it's just contacts that you have, registering with companies where you'd like to work and register for their vacancy alerts. Send in a speculative CV. You know, I've recruited people here and in other jobs on the back of speculative CVs coming in, and it always makes you look like you're showing initiative. The other good thing about volume applications is go along for a few interviews, even if you're just vaguely interested in the job, because you never know what it's going to look like. But the main thing is it gets you experience of interviews. So if you had an exam at university, you know, of course you wouldn't just turn up and expect to be successful. You might look at previous exam papers and see how you do that, or you maybe done some improvised exams in the past, which will put you in the mind frame, the mindset for actually turning up, because it can be nerve-wracking going for interviews. So go for a few. It'll help you find your feet. It will help you refine your interview approach. And then when you go for an interview, just make sure you've researched the company. So if they say, what do you know about the business? You need some killer points. You know, go to the news item on their website. It's one of the things that still staggers me when people come for interview here in previous jobs. What do you know about the business? They know next to nothing, and it just puts them in a very bad light immediately. So do your research. If you've got time, research the marketplace. Who are their main competitors? What's happening in their market at the moment? What sort of challenges and opportunities are they facing? Final thing about preparation is rehearse. So a lot of interviewers now, I don't myself because I find them a bit too artificial, but a lot of people go down a competency-based interview route. You can get all the competency-based questions off the internet, write them down, and rehearse what answers you would give. And when you rehearse them out loud so you can hear yourself saying it, and then use that to think, okay, is that coming across well? Don't do it in your mind. Find a quiet place and actually speak out loud. And then once you've been for an interview, will you accept it? I'll come on to that in a short while. But going for an interview doesn't mean that you're going to accept the job. Going for an interview is going into the showroom and understanding what the job would actually look like, and then judging whether or not you want to accept. Again, in my experience, if you've been in to see a firm and the job sounds great, but your gut instinct is there's something not right, I wouldn't accept it, because I know lots of people who've gone against that intuition, that chimp brain at the back of their minds, and they've come to regret it. After each interview, review your performance. What did you do well? What did you do badly? And how can you actually improve? Further on from that, I'd say only start negotiating once you've stopped selling. So when you're in the interview, you don't ask questions like how much holiday do you get, or what's the money like, or is there an early finish on a Friday? That's not you selling yourself. Okay, all of the questions you're asking, what sort of people are successful here? What's the best thing about working here? Where would you see me delivering value? That's you selling yourself. When they offer you the job, that's when you can talk about money, leave, early finishes, flexi working. I would urge you to follow that. It's a big turn off when people are interviewed. One of the first questions they say, what's the salary? And accepting or declining a job, people torture themselves over it. It's a smaller decision than you think, because you can accept or decline a job. You won't know it's the right decision. And then if you accept the job and you think, actually, it's not working out the way I want to, after a week, a year, 10 years, you go and get another job. So I wouldn't attach too much importance to accepting or declining. You've always got the opportunity in your career to make a couple of mistakes with jobs, and then get your sort of career servo mechanism to pull you back online and go for the thing that's going to be right. One of the expressions I use with people here is, it's all great if you think about your job as your job and the employer. So right seat, right bus. Is the job the right one for me, and is the employer the right one for me? If you're in a job where it's right seat, right bus, fantastic. Stay where you are. If it's wrong seat, right bus, or right seat, wrong bus, see what you can do to change things while you're there. If you ever find yourself wrong seat, wrong bus, just start looking for a job immediately. Yeah, because that's never going to change. And then once you're in the workplace, it's about having that positive impact. Now, hopefully you'll see from here, very, very few of these points of reference on the screen in front of you are about vocational skills. The people who do well, it's about operating style as much as skills, sometimes more so than skills. So about attitude, adopt an approach where you say what can be done, not what can't be done. Yeah, look for opportunities, not barriers and problems. In terms of the behaviour, being balanced and consistent in your approach when you come to work, having that sort of level head and not getting too excitable about different situations, especially if it's a bad excitable, where volatility sometimes can unsettle people. Versatility about getting on teams. You may join a business in role X, but a project might crop up. Volunteer to get involved in that project in any capacity, and make sure that you use those opportunities to develop your versatility and fresh skills. Make sure you're about the outputs. That's taking me back to the task versus purpose. What are you producing? Is it money? Is it savings? Is it a more efficient operating environment? Is it a safer working environment? What are your outputs at the end of the day, at the end of the week? Self-awareness. We all have a preferred operating style, and depending whether it's sort of Jungian analysis or Belbin or whatever, we've all got preferred operating styles. Be aware of what yours is and respect diversity in the fact that other people have got different operating styles. Look for opportunities to develop yourself at all times, vocationally and your interpersonal skills. Authenticity is really important. We learn from being very small children that through manipulation we can get what we want. And if you think about the things we did as kids with our parents, you know, we pretended to be poorly so we didn't go to school. We're told our parents will love them so we'll get an ice cream. And that taught us that using these masks of manipulation can help you get what it is that you want. Avoid those massive manipulation. If you want to Google massive manipulation, there's some really nice stuff out there on that. Be authentic so people trust you. Now, trust can be broken down into three areas. Trust, I think you're honest. Trust, I think you're competent at your job. And trust, I can rely on your discretion. Authenticity, is this person handling me? Trust, do I trust this person? To building blocks for any successful career and relationship at work. And then you come on to developing your skills. So obviously with the education that you're getting at Sunderland University, you'll go out into the workplace or return to the workplace and develop that. So throughout that ascendancy, you look at your knowledge, what do you know, skills, how good are you at applying that knowledge, experience, how long have you been applying that knowledge in a skilled way for, what all the different permutations, the different, you know, how things can play out, and your experience can help people respond to that. So you start off in your role, you know, this is no management responsibility. And it's about competence, you know, actually doing what the employer asks you to do and actually growing in that role. And then you can move into management. And management can either be on a permanent basis or a project basis, sort of hierarchy on demand. You can manage people or you can manage a department. And management is really about order and consistency. What needs to be done? When does it need to be done by? To what level of quality? I've got to make sure that is happening. Once you've nailed that, and obviously within management, you know, there's an element of leadership, of course there is. You then go on to leading organizations, leading enterprises, and that can be permanent, it can be project. And that's really about change and movement. That's about responding to the challenges that are coming towards you. Horizon scanning for new ways of doing things. Like I said, lean, bottom up, innovation, top down, and that would be a natural evolution of you as you apply your master's degrees and your business degrees out there in the marketplace. The second last slide that I want to talk about is perspective. Now this is hopefully interesting because the way we see the world is based on our lived experience. I know lived experience is a bit of a trope at the moment, but we learn what we live and we live what we learn, and that teaches us to see things in a certain way. Now sometimes, so you look at the picture on the left, yeah, your brain will automatically see that one of two ways: either half a face looking towards you, or it's the half a profile face looking over to the left. Now, when you look at that, your brain will switch between the two. You say, yeah, I can see that from two sides. So we're viewing this as an argument or a debate about what to do in the workplace. You've got your natural way of seeing things, but you can see what the other person sees as well. And that's often the case in the workplace. But then if you take the beach ball, now if I put that beach ball in front of two people and say, what color is it? The person on the left would say, well, it's green, yellow, and orange. And the person on the right would say, no, you're wrong. It's blue, white, and red. And no matter how much they told each other, whatever the colors that they were seeing, the other person wouldn't be able to see them. So this is where, do you only take your perspective of it, or will you listen to the people around you? You will be listened to more if you follow what I mentioned before, an authenticity, the massive manipulation, and build that element of trust. Because if you can't see the other person's point of view, you've got to at least try to understand that other person's point of view. It's only then that you'll start to really get a view of the full picture. Because obviously, from either side of the beach ball, both of the people are right and both of the people can be right. So that's really about, so the first one is about, yeah, I can see the two sides to it. The second one is, I can only see one side, but I'm going to trust you. There is another angle to this. The final one is where you just don't see it. Now, you might have seen that graphic before, but if I was to say to you, which is the darker shade, A or B, I think everyone in the call would say A, because it looks darker. A and B are actually, and I still can't see it now, but if you Google this, they'll show it to you. A and B are exactly the same shade. And what's happening there is the graphic's been assembled so that green cone is casting a shadow and your mind is filling in the blanks. Now, the reason why I put that up there is because sometimes everybody can agree that A is darker than B, and you get groupthink. Yeah, it's like the Bay of Pigs invasion in the 1960s with John F. Kennedy. They were all in a room and everybody said the Bay of Pigs was absolutely going to be a success. Nobody said, hang on, I'm going to challenge this groupthink. This graphic hopefully conveys that groupthink is very easy because our brains are filling in the missing part. So if you think that everybody in the room has got the same view and somebody says, hang on a second, I want to say something, welcome that diversity of thinking because they might be able to see something that you can't. Before I go on to the next slide, I know people on the call are still saying A is definitely darker than B. Trust me, they're absolutely the same shade. So perception is really important in the workplace. How you see it, how other people see it, and sometimes how nobody sees the reality until that picture changes. So we talked a bit there about having a positive impact and perception. The second last slide, or kind of the last slide, I'm going to recap on one other one. These operating styles. So the one on the left is about true colours. If you want to look that up, really interesting. And the other one is on UK transactional analysis. The true colours is about your preferred operating style. So I'm red, and you could be blue, you could be green, you could be yellow. Red means I'm about speed of decision. I'm about momentum. I don't need a lot of detail. I'm not a detail person. It's all about velocity. And driving it forward and, you know, what's the decision? Okay, what's next? Blue is about people who want to see the numbers. They want to mull over the information and really analyze the data before they make a decision. Green, it's about getting everybody on side, you know, bring the people with you. Yeah, you know, you go far if you travel alone. Sorry, you go fast if you travel alone. You go far if you travel together. Green's about the people. Yellow is about the ideas. Yeah, an ideas person. Now, red and green do not get on at all in the workplace. I had somebody here who was hard over green and I was hard over red. We liked each other, but every time something came along, we were just chalk and cheese on the approach to this. Blue and yellow don't get on. Blue wants numbers. Yellow isn't interested in numbers. Yellow's all about the ideas, the innovation, the eureka moment. So if you understand what color you are, you'll recognize what color other people are. But you need to recognize that that's neither right nor wrong. It's just alternative operating styles that every business needs. If a business was all red, it would be in trouble. If it was all yellow, it would be in trouble. You need that mix to have a successful team. So those are the different individual personality styles. And then what happens is they come together and you get this UK transactional analysis. So this is where we've got different ego states. So critical parent would be along the lines of, how many times have I told you not to do this in the workplace? Here you are late again. What you're thinking of? And always the same faces. Yeah, I won't do this for all of them, but there are different category types. Now, the thing is that, again, going back to when we were children and how we've grown up and the things that we've seen as we've got older and that learned behavior, when we're in conflict with people, the reds and the greens, you tend to go into one of these four outlying rings, and you then get a defend attack spiral where you don't get the right solution. One person prevails, the other person feels like they've lost, and it's bad for the business. There's a lot in that stuff online about adult ego state. This is about seeking to understand. It's about listening and repeating back. It's about canvassing people's opinions and making sure that people are heard and that people are understood. That you factor in, going back to that thing on perception, other people's perception, so it'll give you a fresh view on how to approach the problems that you will face in the workplace, public or private sector. So I wanted to go back to the key learning on the people as the if you take nothing else away from this, the balance between rights and responsibilities. Make sure you're aware of your responsibilities, not just your rights. Make sure that you focus on the purpose. What's your organization about? Is what you're doing truly getting it to where it needs to be? Don't sweat the small stuff and really try not to sweat the big stuff, because it's neither as good or as bad as you think it's going to be. Be honest with people and think about their feelings when you're being honest with them. And that concludes the presentation.